Welcome to Minority Focus. I'm your host, Jimmie Moore. I think we've got I know what will be a very, very interesting show today. I'd often read the newspaper, and on Fridays, I think, they would always have a lineup of the things that are going on in the various churches in the community. And included in that would be an advertisement for Teen Challenge. I think it actually says Teen Challenge for people with hang-ups. Is that what it says? One day he just right, so I called, and I got this fantastic, handsome group of people to come out and do the show. I want to introduce them, and I hope to get them all right. This is Scott Lipinsky. Yeah, I told you I was going to forget
Bryan Bert.
Bryan and Shannon. I can't forget. Shannon is the president of the group. And I want to forward him up front, first and foremost, to speak about, to share what the program is.
Well, Teen Challenge it's a global ministry, and Scott will probably do justice a little bit more as far as explanation of what Teen Challenge encompasses completely. I can kind of speak on the Operation Teen Challenge Paducah Mayfield, which is just a concerted effort among a committee member and members of the community that's come together to try to help with addiction in our community through hopefully the establishment of a Teen Challenge Center in our community, the focus being on a ladies' Teen Challenge Center first. And through that, we've been in contact with one of our more local teen challenges, which Scott is the executive director there in Dixon. And we've tried to team up with them from a community side to say, hey, how can we come under the leadership of you guys and mimic what you're doing in that community, in our community, the opioid crisis, the meth crisis that we see in our communities. And we think one way to establish that is to come alongside the churches through Teen Challenge and not be a replacement of the church. I hear Scott say that so often, but to be a group that helps the churches deal with that, because we believe the church should take leadership on that issue in our community. And one way to have that happen is a grassroots movement, literally from the people in the community that says, we're going to come together and we're going to establish a stronghold in our community that says we want to take back what the streets have taken from so many families. So that's where we got connected with Scott through a good friend of mine who we did jail ministry, and we met, and then the Lord did the rest to really put the people together, and as evidence here today, being here. So
something for him and by him. That's how he works.
Yes.
He just allows everything up. Scott, he said, Shannon said that you were headquartered in Dixon,
Kentucky.
Dixon Springs,
Nope,
or
just Dixon. Just Dixon. It's just a little bit north of Madisonville, Kentucky, and so that's where our men's and our women's campus is. With Teen Challenge, and a little bit of background on the organization itself. Some may know, some may not, but Teen Challenge was an organization started back in 1958 by a man named David Wilkerson. I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Cross and the Switchblade.
Yes.
That's David Wilkerson, and that's how Teen Challenge came about. He was a Pennsylvania pastor who felt the call of God on his life when reading a news article to go over to New York City, travel over to New York City and help some boys out in a murder trial. And so he went over there with the leading of God to go over and help those boys, and went into the courtroom in the court situation, and it didn't quite work out the way he expected. He went into the court situation, I guess maybe feeling like everybody was going to be freed and everybody was going to let go, full of that passion. And basically, as quick as he went into the courtroom, he was escorted out. And there was a picture taken of him walking out of the courtroom with his Bible in his hand, escorted out, made it to the paper and everything else, Pennsylvania pastor interrupts murder trial. And so from that, he ministered and witnessed on the streets to the drug addicts, the prostitutes, all the kids that were lost. And and he started seeing them come to Christ. And then he thought, well, what do I do now? You know, what's the next step? You know, they're saved and then they walk back into the life of drugs or prostitution. And so that's how the first Teen Challenge came about in 1958. So Teen Challenge now is going to be celebrating this year 60 years. Wow. And so from that small beginning in New York City, from the passion of one man, they're growing every day, but there's our women's center in Dixon Teen Challenge, or Dixon, Kentucky, was number 200 in the United States, and I think there's over 1,100 teen challenges in well over 100 countries. Mm-hmm. So it's
you
huge.
mentioned men and women's campuses. Mm-hmm. You have different separate campuses.
Absolutely.
I ain't going there, man.
No, have to keep them separate.
I just say that there's campuses. You actually have buildings for people to stay. I mean, there's 45-day programs, 30-day programs. Is that
Teen Challenges? Ours are a minimum of 1 year. And I know it's Teen Challenge, and it's a little bit of a misnomer there because, you know, saying teen, but ours is an adult male and adult women's facilities. But throughout our region, we have juvenile boys and juvenile girls programs. Okay. So we can facilitate help for anyone that's missing hope, you know, that's hopeless. And so ours is an adult male facility that can hold 43 men, and we have an adult women's facility that can hold 16 women.
Wow.
And they're with us, like I said, for a minimum of 1 year.
Yeah. That's just called an extended stay or an extended program.
Yes. Long-term recovery.
Long-term recovery. I hadn't heard about a year-long program in a long time. What's it like, Bryan? What does it work? How does it work? What do they do?
Well, Teen Challenge, I myself am recovered and saved by Jesus Christ from the streets, and I myself went through the Teen Challenge program 5 years ago. What's it like? I've been to secular rehabs. I've even been to prison rehabs. And the difference is secular rehabs and the prison rehab, they focus a lot on the drugs. Drugs are bad for you because of this. Drugs are bad for you because of that. In Teen Challenge, the focus was on Jesus. Jesus is good for you because of this. Jesus is good for you because of that. Right. And if I was to be honest, I went into the program faking it to make it. I just didn't want to go to prison again. And anyway, it took me 9 months to finally get it. And I started seeing Jesus is real. Right. Like, I didn't see it at first. I was blind as could be. Yeah. But I came out a completely different creation. A totally different person than when I went in. That's what it's all about. The difference, Jesus.
That's what it's all about. Shannon, you smiled when Bryan mentioned prison. Any particular reason for it?
Well, prison ministry is just kind of, that's my calling. I work full time. I have a job full time. But what finding purpose on this earth is all about is knowing what God wants you to do. Hebrews 13:3 says to be with those in prison as though you're in prison yourself. And I always found it odd that Paul kind of adds to that, be with those mistreated. As though you're mistreated, and you think, well, how can a prisoner be mistreated for their wrongdoing, right? We lock them up, throw away the key, and the reality is that those are our brothers and sisters in Christ. And if we're Christians, we're called to minister to those needs. The penal system, as it is right now, is it serves its purpose, but what purpose does it serve in the kingdom? It serves its purpose. So, in this world, so the obligation is to get the criminals separate from the crimes, separate from the public. But the reality is 600,000 men and women are getting released from prison all across America every year, prisons and jails, and they attend your churches. They go to your supermarkets. They're at your school functions. And the question is, what did you want to show them while they were there? There was a absence of learning or choice that got them there. So now the question becomes, what do we do with the rest of it? And Teen Challenge, they see that side of an individual that comes in beaten, that comes in broken, that comes in hopeless, and they say, I want something real. I want to see the real thing. Jail didn't help me. It made me worse. It added to my resume of wrongdoing. I want to see something that's real that can change me. And I think Teen Challenge does that. The discipleship program, the way they do things is to take as Jesus did and go out into the world. Now, you didn't finish your recovery here in 12 months. You still have the rest of your life, and Jesus is forever. So that's why I smile, because to hear that someone's in prison and to feel hopeless, there's so many programs out there, there's so many individuals that just want to reach a person. Why would it be strange that Jesus would steal you long enough to get your attention at a prison cell? It's the same thing that he did with the Apostle Paul in 2/3 of the New Testament Bible. So sometimes he's just got to get you there to listen.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
did you
I was going to say, Shannon mentioned hope, and I know that's our biggest passion, is to provide hope. I mean, you look at where you can turn to, and you mentioned 30-day and 60-day programs. You know, a lot of people have entered those, and with long-term recovery, I think spending time with Jesus as that hope and pointing out exactly what that hope is in someone's life. You look on the news, there's no hope. You look on TV sometimes and different things, everything you turn to is no hope. And that's a big passion of ours with Teen Challenge, is providing hope. And that's how it was unique to get with Shannon, to hear him and his passion for this area. And it's something, that we had already been doing through different drug awareness outreaches and different church services that we come from, Dixon down to Paducah and Mayfield and the surrounding areas, doing outreach and services and stuff like that to provide hope to this area. And then, Shannon talked about, well, what does it look like to do more? And I think that's where we came alongside and started a Celebrate Recovery group here in Hickory, just to provide, I think somewhere I heard a statistic, less than 1 out of 11 can go into inpatient treatment to actually into a long-term recovery. And so what are we doing for the rest of those that can't? So that's why we started the Celebrate Recovery group. That's why we do a lot of outreaches and church services in the area to be that hope provider for the Paducah Mayfield area.
I know addiction touches all age groups. It gets no barriers as to where it can reach. You look too young to have had a rock bottom, man, like a bottom that would require you to have that kind of care. Had you reached the bottom?
I have reached the bottom, then I took a jackhammer and dug deeper. Good sir. Yes, sir. I raised by a good family and everything, but I think where it really went south is when I hit my teenage years, hung out with the wrong group, and I got started in drugs, and a couple of things, one thing led to another. Before I knew it, I was in some bad drugs and hit college, and I realized selling them made money, and good money. And I got in a bad lifestyle then, trafficking and stuff like that, and I got addicted to the lifestyle. But then one night, I sat down and realized I was going to die. I had seen people get shot, I had seen people overdose, and I for the first time in a long time, I prayed. And I simply said, God, I'm going to die. I need help. That was it. And I look back now, and I see, before that prayer, I got away with everything. After that prayer, I couldn't get away with nothing. I got caught, I got busted on everything I tried doing, and that was the Lord answering my prayer, and it just took me a long time to figure that out. So yes, I have hit rock bottom. I've lost everything multiple times because I was one stubborn fellow.
Oddly enough, it's said that there's different strokes for different folks. Some people do the rock bottom thing, some don't. Some don't lose everything.
Right.
They got plenty, that's why they can buy what it is they do, because they have plenty of money and all that sort of thing. The reasons for wanting to are varied. But it don't matter your reason. I mean, how you choose to go about it makes a difference, I think. I might have just a moment to share. Sure. I sat in a group of 7 guys passing the gin bottle. And the fellow that sat right here beside me, he had a tree stump for, that was his spot. And I passed the bottle to him one night, and he set it between his legs. And everybody looked at him because he's a guzzler. He would always just, and he'd look up at me and say, "Why are you here? What you doing here?" And that was it. That's what it took. For a fellow drunk to tell me I don't need to be doing this, and that was 9 years ago. And that was a Thursday, and that Monday I was on the way to some VA treatment, and that's all it took for me. But it varies from person to person. Are the cases that you deal with, do they involve all these variations, the poor, the rich,
Absolutely.
forced by the judge?
Like you said earlier, drugs is no respecter of persons.
Right.
No color, no anything does it respect. It takes anybody out. And so we take, a court order, but I think a mom or a wife order is stronger than a court order sometimes, and but we'll accept anybody in the programs with that. So definitely we take all kinds, anybody that.
If I were about recovery right now, where would I go? Could I come to where?
Anybody over 18 at our men's center or our women's center. So we
come to Dixon.
Yes, sir.
First steps. Can I walk up there? Could I just walk in there and say, "Hey, I need some help"?
We don't turn anybody down.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Maybe you got to pay for it though, right?
I won't turn anybody down for lack of money. We would ask the family for support, but at our program, we have a good job training program also. So typically when you look at a lot of people in addiction, like you said, sitting around passing a gin bottle, probably not doing a whole lot in life sometimes. And so we have different detail shops that people work at. We have our own landscaping business. So people come and they actually spend time and learn a skill with us, as well as the education side of it too. We have, you think the people in addiction, everybody has a talent and a gift by God. And so ultra talented men that have probably squandered their talents for years, and so they come in the program and they understand that they're great with woodworking. We have a wood shop and a craft shop where we make different crafts, or we have like an IMS business, like a handyman service where we build decks and remodel houses and stuff like that. So guys can come in with little to no skill, maybe 18 years old, but you can put them with someone who is skilled and they can really learn something. Or maybe they have a passion for doing yard work or landscaping, or maybe they have a passion for detailing cars. Right. And so they come in, there's things that we can do, and then again with our education, the schedule that they have, they come in the evenings, they have Group Studies for New Christians, which is a basic book that walks them through a lot of the things that people missed along the way in life. Go into Personal Studies for New Christians, which is a little bit deeper. We start making contracts for specific needs within the student. I believe very much with the tools of the faith-based side, but also the tools that there's an actual addiction issue. So every morning my wife and I both teach relapse prevention. So getting down and understanding with relapse prevention that you have to have an accountability system. There's steps that you have to take, and then very big every Monday at all of our centers, and including here in Hickory with Celebrate Recovery, knowing how powerful of a tool Celebrate Recovery is. And then our hope and our passion is that the students spend enough time in Celebrate Recovery when they're with us learning it, that as they go back home, they can start a Celebrate Recovery group at their church for accountability, and we can really start spreading this hope thing throughout the area.
Right. That's beautiful. You once you've completed the program, as you mentioned earlier, it's a lifetime thing.
That's right.
Just graduate. But you go home and you can make stuff with your hands.
That's right.
And make the money to buy the things that you want, and be proud of what you've. I had a friend once who took brick masonry, and we drive places years later. You say, "I did that right there. I bricked that house right there."
Your work ethic in Teen Challenge just goes sky high. Before Teen Challenge, I woke up when I wanted to wake up, and I usually slept in because I was up late at night. Teen Challenge was a rude awakening for me, and my work ethic shot up because the work program, you work, but Teen Challenge is the one that gets paid. It helps with, helping students get through the program. Right. So when I got out and I found one of my callings, I like talking to people, telling people about Jesus like we were talking about earlier, and that's one of my callings. Since I've been out of Teen Challenge, I've been to 7 different countries now, 9 if you want to include airports, 10 if you want to include America. And I've gotten to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. I got to talk to other people. So it didn't stop at Teen Challenge. But when I get back home, I found me a good job, and I tell you what, my work ethic shot up. Like, when I got that paycheck, I can't tell you how happy I was. I thought I was rich.
Did you do one of the skill type things? Did you take one of the, as far as your training is concerned, did you?
As far as the training I took, it was talking to people and really being able to relate to them, and that's why I became such an evangelist and missionary kind of person. That's the skill that I held onto in Teen Challenge and I took with me. And since then, I've worked in at a nursing home. I've pastored a church last year until I stepped into this Teen Challenge, Operation Teen Challenge Paducah Mayfield, and I stepped down from them in good graces and giving this my full focus now.
Right. It's miraculous. But then he's miraculous.
That's right.
Amen.
Amen.
So, what do you expect, really? It comes from getting to know. Well, you use a phrase that I like a lot. I finally got it, or I didn't get it. You know, when you get it, your life changes drastically.
Absolutely. Yep.
How opposed to people when they come that aren't necessarily religious or don't particularly care anything about the Lord?
You know, obviously, the people coming into the program weren't living right. You know, they may have grown up in church or known church, but definitely at that point in time, most of them turned away from God or looking at God, and some may have turned to and really struggled with it. But I think the biggest thing for the first month or so is just getting their head clear. You know, just getting them clear and getting receptive and learning again. For so many years, I mean, somebody was, you know, either in alcohol or drugs or pills or whatever it was, that their mind was just in a fog. So we really take time with them. You know, even the first week in the program, we leave them right there on campus. They're constantly around the staff, so they're not going anywhere. They're not doing anything. It gives them, you know, time for their head to kind of start to clear, you know, ask any questions. And then, you know, then the process begins. But, you know, everybody takes different time. Like you said, everybody's different, and you know, there's no two ways for somebody to work out what they're going through. But the classes are still the same. The opportunities are still the same. You know, waking up and spending time in devotion together, going with the different crews or groups, and, you know, things as much as going back and forth and listening to Christian music throughout the day, or at the detail shop listening to Christian music, and then coming in the evening and having education classes. Our counselors or our mentors are there for any one-on-one that they need to talk with, and we actually have an agency that works with us in Madisonville in case they need extra counseling. There's professional counselors that they can go see. So we have a couple different unique things to our area, but again, it's up to the individual. You know, it took him 9 months, and you know, I'm a graduate of Teen Challenge from 2003, and I don't, you know, even 9, 10 months, 11 months in, I still didn't want anything to do with Teen Challenge. I was praying to go back, honestly praying to go back out into the world, but the Lord wouldn't release me, and I knew at that point I had enough of Him in my life that I had to listen to what He was saying, even though it wasn't what I wanted to do. Right. But I submitted, and I've been with Teen Challenge ever since. My wife is a graduate of Teen Challenge. She's been with Teen Challenge ever since. You know, so it's been amazing. You know, since 2003, working with Teen Challenge. There's nothing else that I'd rather do.
That's beautiful. Are the young people in the program far outnumbering old people? And to them, that's 25 and 30.
I don't know where I fall in that. I'm 42. I don't want to say I'm old.
You're older than me, so
Appreciate that,
I'm going to say that.
Good looking out there, buddy.
But nobody outnumbers anybody because...
It seems to be, I think right now, it'll ebb and flow, but I think right now we do have a younger pool of students. I'd say, you know, 25 to 30 and under, somewhere around in there versus, but we definitely have some up in the 50s, you know.
Right. Any difference in the approach that you use for youth and adults? Same across the board.
Same. The part that The part that could get a little bit different would be maybe in their PSNC contracts if there's something that they would see that they need to work on. But, same approach, devotion in the morning, same classes they walk through. The one-on-one in their mentoring session, they can talk about some different things. But, from what I've seen, it's generally the same approach across the board.
Yeah. Shannon, are all the people that you all use in the teaching, counseling, therapies, are they all recovering people by chance?
No, in most cases, I would say that you have a diverse group of personalities, and I think it takes that. One thing that we hope to do with this movement here in our particular area is mimic the success that we've seen already with Dixon and with other areas. We want to say what's working in your community that we can take and use in ours. Is it a mixture of secular personalities? We still respect that, AA, NA, all of those things. Scott mentioned Celebrate Recovery. A John Baker ministry started out in Saddleback Church out in California under the leadership of Rick Warren, which is a very familiar name, and now a 30-year-old ministry. We're one of the first groups, from what I understand,
First Teen Challenge
to actually adapt and kind of coincide with Celebrate Recovery. So you've taken one national ministry, global ministry, and another global ministry, and right here in Hickory, Kentucky at Community Fellowship Baptist Church, every Monday night at 6:30, we've established a way to reach out to. We have two of the best ministries worldwide partnered together right here in our backyard. We don't discredit, the help of AA, NA. We support that. How do we work with you? All are working for the common cause. So, do you have to have a background in recovery? Not necessarily.
But do you actually utilize anything from AA, NA, any of those? Maybe put a different take on it, or in principle?
I think, and Scott running the actual program currently might be able to answer that better. I've worked in other faith-based rehabs.
Less than a minute.
I've established other strongholds with jail ministry and things like that. One of the things I battled the most was, would you have had to have been through recovery?
You got it. Sure. Gentlemen, I'm sorry, I'm out of time.
Sir.
It'd be nice
It's been
if
amazing.
we could
Yes,
get
absolutely.
together again sometimes and talk some more
Sure.
about it.
Don't threaten us with a good time.
No, in fact, if you don't like what you're getting, change what you're doing.
That's
Amen.
right. Yep.
And what
That's
a better
right.
way to change it than with the Lord.
Amen.
Thank you so
Thank you
much
for having us.
coming.
Thank you,
I
sir.
really appreciate it, and we're going to find out more about you and what you do.
right.
Yes.
For Minority Focus, I'm your host, Jimmie Moore.